Okay, so it's like all council's present. Call this meeting to order. First item, roll call.
Bird,
Here.
Henson,
Here.
Koho Kelly. Here. Mormon,
Here.
Elizabeth,
Here.
Williamson. Here. Ingstrom.
Here. Item number 2, approval of agenda.
Any changes, Your Honor?
One change, I guess we have to, this is a change, it's just the notification of the meeting on the 21st. Probably don't need to put that on the agenda. So no changes.
Okay. Move to approve. Second.
Please call the roll.
Henson,
Yes.
Koho Kelly.
Yes.
Mormon,
Yes.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Ingstrom,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes. Okay, item number 3, review and discuss wastewater treatment facility plan report. Assuming that it's gonna be taken over by Perry.
Yes. Hello, everyone. First, I think I'll introduce the folks that are with me tonight. Katie, this is next to me. Water report that we're going to be covering next. This. Then on the screen, we have other folks that are this. The install in the wastewater. Also on a wastewater leak, and then we can. Water section, so I'll have to turn it over to a couple of them as we move forward here. And what I thought I would do is kind of go through the highlights of the wastewater report first, and then I'll turn it over to Katie and she's talk about water. I did hand out the executive summaries for both reports, which are the same extent. Executive summary that is in the report, very familiar. Thanks to you guys for looking at the entire report. Yes. So basically what this study is a combination of a lot of work to look at what needs to be done at the wastewater plant. Not only the new Daisy industry that's coming down, the potential industries and future population with a 20-year design period, which is up to about 2044. We did get some information from Daisy on both the water and wastewater side. Actually, what those loadings are going to be that are going to be both discharged to the wastewater plant after they do their processes, and then the water needs coming into the facility. So what we're looking at first is what we're going to be seeing down at the wastewater plant for not only Daisy but the entire community. And based on our studies and the information that was provided by industries and Daisy, there are quite a few things that need to be done there. I'll go real quick. The first page on the executive summary is just the projected flow of loadings that we're looking at. I think that one of the reasons that it just gives you an idea of how much more wastewater we can see in the community here at the plant. Is fully on board. And it's our understanding that they're phasing in 2 phases now. The first phase is the operation of 2020. That's the sour cream and cheese phases. And full build out will happen around 2030. So everything that we are looking at is based around those 2 phases. On the wastewater side, doesn't really make sense to phase approach on that project because there really isn't anything my looking at the first phase of after that phase is for you. So really all the 1 phase. Water sides of the work. But basically we're looking at the facility similar to what we did about 3 years ago. And then looking at what the loadings are going to be for everything comes down. We have recommended improvements here. I guess I take you back. The first phase is there are 2 phases. The second phase is something that we will cover probably 8-10 years from now. Is what we're thinking on new city. Right now, the city doesn't have that in their field. We will, and we're also gonna be submitting a plan along with this, so I'm gonna do how to show what the plans are for that. But the first phase is just basically to accommodate Daisy and the other little community. First, so what I want to do is I'm gonna look at it basically from the collection system into the plan. And then once we get the plan, I'm gonna open it up to Christina and Caleb to talk about their list. Out in the collection system, the only thing that we need out there is to basically replace the existing pump station that's located on that site. There is a station out there now, but it's too small to handle the new flows coming from Daisy, and it's outdated.
That's the lift station, right?
Yeah. So what we're proposing to do is to put in a new lift station. The force main that's in there also is not large enough as a velocity requirement. So we're looking at a lift station and force main to bring wastewater into the nearest manhole on the gravity collection system that will then flow by gravity down to the wastewater plant. And that project, or that part of the project, is $1.6 million.
There's about 5,500 feet of 12-inch force main.
That's all the way down 5 Mile Drive.
It's 5 Mile Drive all the way up to behind Fairway.
So is there any,
Behind the Ford dealership, I guess it'd be on the street behind there.
is there any concern with the fact that there is no shoulder on that road? It's gravel, that's it.
We will actually put the force main similar to what a water main would be out into the ditch.
Okay.
Manhole is actually in the ditch. And we also have included in that part of the project some odor control. Because of the high street wastewater that's going to be sitting in a pump station and in the there's a chance that it's by the time it gets to town, and we don't want it to cause problems with the residents along the collection system. So we have a odor control mechanism built into this project. Well, that's the collection system. We looked at the refuse sewers downstream. The one thing that we will be looking at on is making sure that they equalize their flow. They don't exceed the capacity of the lift station or the gravity sewer downstream. Otherwise, we would have to upsize everything downstream. And they already are planning on equalization facility after. They've done that in other communities, so they're gonna do that here as well. We've been working with them, we know what their limiting factor is. So on the biological treatment side, now that we're down in the plant, I'm gonna have Caleb talk about that. He was very instrumental in working with equipment suppliers and looking at alternatives and so forth. And Caleb, if you can jump on, hopefully we can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Just coming through you.
We'll have to change the speaker real quick.
Okay. Testing.
Audio.
Now try.
Hello?
Yep, there you go.
Okay, thank you. If you are seeing the satellite image of the plant on the screen, kind of on the bottom is 4 tanks that have wastewater in them, and that's the main biological and nutrient removal occurs there. And the facility plan is recommending an expansion. Right now there's 4 tanks, and there'd be 2 more for a total of 6, and that would supply the adequate space and aeration necessary to treat the expanded organic loading from Daisy. There's also some, I'll just call them accessories associated with that, like blowers and some controls and instrumentation and some miscellaneous modifications. But those tanks and those accessories are about 5.5 million, I think is what, yes, we had in the cost table. And that recommendation is unchanged from the draft, that stayed the same. One thing, as Perry mentioned about the nutrient reduction study, that changed slightly in phase two. Mostly because the phosphorus loading that we were planning on in the draft increased. About the time we submitted the draft to you, Daisy provided us with some increased phosphorus loading, which is actually about double what it was. So as far as the tank space is concerned, that's about the same, but it does have some biosolids and some sludge implications that Christina will touch on. And then also the nutrient reduction, it also has implications. So as Perry mentioned, the nutrient reduction, compliance would be anticipated in maybe 8 to 10 years after this permit cycle, and then the next 5-year permit cycle after that. That study that we will also submit will deal with how we pay for it. Is it too expensive? Is there need to be, a phosphorus surcharge added to the ordinance so that the industrial contributors are the ones paying for that cost directly related to the phosphorus removal? That's what that study will cover. But in this facility plan, the phase two, it is also reflects a little differently. It's about $1 million, I want to say, more than the draft, which accommodates switching chemicals from ferric to alum. The alum requires some heated storage, as well as some other backup chemical infrastructure. So that pretty much summarizes the biological and nutrient removal portions.
Okay, now that we've got through basically the liquid side of the wastewater plant, then there's what we call the biosolids side, which is what settles out system and needs to be processed before it's either recirculated or sent to the. Right now, you're sending your biosolids to landfill. You used to land apply, but now you're sending landfill. And there's several treatment processes that are in place now to water the sludge before you haul it away. Otherwise, it'd be too expensive to haul. It's basically liquid sludge. So Christina is going to cover that. She's been working on that.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Like Perry said, I worked on the biosolids part of your plant here. So basically your clarifiers, which are those large kind of black looking circular things on the facility plan image there, those are your clarifiers, and those separate kind of the cleaner water from the sludge, we call it. So the sludge comes off of the bottom and then gets pumped to the next location on the plant. So in the report, we have some additional pumps that will need to be added to pump the additional sludge that will be pulled off of the bottom of those clarifiers. So in the report, they're called RAS and WAS pumps. So we have some pricing in there for that. In addition to that, we're going to add some VFDs, which is the variable frequency drive on your WAS pumps that will help it will help control the flow a lot better and make them more energy efficient. So we have that in the report for those pumps, and that will, again, accommodate the extra flow that's coming from Daisy and the additional sludge that will be produced as part of this process. So after it goes through those pumps, the next place that it will go to is an aerated digester, which is it would be at the top of the page. You have little white round things. Those are your existing aerated digesters. So those basically, the sludge goes to them and sits in them for about 15 days, and it basically eats itself and it reduces the quantity of sludge in there. And so to accommodate the extra sludge that's produced from your clarifiers, from your flow from Daisy, we looked at some options what to do if we wanted to make a really big one or a smaller one. And we decided that we can make a smaller digester, which is it's called sludge digester tank number 3 on there, kind of in a dash form. We can make a smaller tank that's about 400,000 gallons if we thicken this sludge before it gets there. And so right now your sludge is not thickened between your clarifiers and your digesters. It's less than 1% solids right now. But if we insert a process between those two to thicken it to about 3% solids, that will save you on the size of your digester. So instead of building a 2.4 million gallon tank, you only need to build a 400,000 gallon tank. So we ran the numbers on that over 20 years with all the energy that would be required, and it will be a cost savings over time to do the smaller tank versus the larger one with the additional thickening equipment. So the thickening equipment between your digesters and your clarifiers, we looked at 2 options for this. One was a gravity belt thickener, and the other one is a suspended air flotation. And we found that the suspended air flotation will use less chemicals, such as polymer, over a 20-year period. And so we decided to go with that. It just is the most cost-effective way to do that over 20 years. So you'll see, I think there's an arrow where it says demolish existing aerated sludge holding tanks and construct a SAF building. That's just short for suspended air flotation. So that's where we propose to put that building and thicken the sludge to 3% for that thickening process. We actually don't, your existing aerated tanks there don't provide a lot of storage right now. And we kind of need the space. So we thought it was valuable to demolish them and reuse that for the SAF building. So that's what we're recommending there. After it goes through the digester, the next, does anyone have any questions about that part of it so far?
What does it do to the cost estimate if we downsize that digester? Does it
If
do
we-
anything?
Yeah, it does. So it's based upon, the price of steel. Right now I have it in the report as a bolted steel tank, which is a little bit less expensive than concrete. So yeah, if the tank gets smaller, the price gets less for that. And based upon, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, yep. So like Caleb was saying, we got some different phosphorus numbers from Daisy right when we submitted the draft report. And since then, we've also heard that the numbers might be changing a little bit since then. So if the numbers go down, the size of this digester would go down also. So right now, I believe we have it at kind of the worst case scenario. We shouldn't have any higher phosphorus than the numbers they gave us. But if we have less, we would do like a technical memo at the time we're, designing this digester and make sure that we get the optimum size for that. So yeah, good question. Any other questions about that part of the process? Okay. Then, so after it goes through the digester and basically it shrinks the quantity of the sludge in those digesters. It goes to a, let's see, I'm going to pull up my sheet here, the next page, a dewatering process. And so right now you have a whole building dedicated to that. So on your map there, it's the one called sludge press improvements. Right now you have what's called a belt filter press in that room, and it requires full-time operator watching it basically. So anytime they use it right now, they have to have someone watching it in case it goes wrong or anything fails. It's a massive failure. So and it would have to be, replaced, and the size would have to be increased if we kept the technology that's in there right now. So with the increased loading that's coming from your digesters, we looked at 2 different options. Kind of some traditional technology would be like a screw press that dewaters, that pulls out the water basically from your sludge and makes it about, can be anywhere from like 15 to 20% solids. So that what that does is decreases the amount that you need to haul to your landfill. Instead of 3% solids, it'd be way thicker. So we compared the screw presses to what's called a fan press, and over time, the fan press turned out to be the most cost-effective option for that. So we priced that out, And that is in the report, the price for that. I think it changed a little bit from the draft report, also based upon Daisy's phosphorus numbers. So again, if the phosphorus turns out to be less from Daisy, we'll like write a technical memo at this time of design and just get that to the optimum size that we need. So, but I think that the numbers in the report would be the highest value that we would need to go for that fan press option there. So, do you have any questions about the?
Does that new technology eliminate the requirement for a full-time person to watch it?
Yeah, good question. That was one of the things we looked at, is that it does not need full-time observation. So you start it up, let it go throughout the day, and shut it off at the end of the day. So it's a lot simpler. I've talked to JD about it, and he really likes this piece of technology. They won't have to
I
have.
bet he does.
Yeah. So, and there is one, there's one nearby, well, not really nearby, but in Iowa City, they use this also. And I'm trying to think of where else they have them in Iowa, but it's a proven technology that works well, and I think will be more efficient for you guys for your plan. So
Are we charged, at the landfill, are we charged by volume or weight?
that's a good question. I'm not sure.
By weight,
I can't answer.
by ton.
It's gotta be weight.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
They weigh you in and they weigh you out.
He says it's weight.
So, do you know the approximate, change in tonnage?
From what's right now,
Yeah,
I'd have to pull up my spreadsheet and just double check. I know that,
just out of curiosity.
yeah, it's hundreds of tons. I'm trying to think. I'd have to look it up for
No,
sure.
so we're paying to get rid of water is what we're paying.
And they bring the water back for us to treat again.
Right.
So,
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? They
Right. So
truck
right,
it all the way up here.
absolutely. So right now, your belt filter press, I think it's 15% solids, and this new technology, they're hoping to get up to 20%. So that would be that much reduction in the water that you're hauling out
Yeah.
every day. So it's the thicker the better, basically, for this portion of the plant. So we did also look at, do you guys need more trucks or new trucks to haul the material from this? And we decided that you don't, that your existing trucks will work. It'll just be, 2 trips a day, every day of the week, 5 days a week. So, so what you have will work for that, which is good. So, any other questions on the dewatering side of things?
Oh, ma'am.
Great.
But thanks, Christina. So moving on to the next item in the summary is the backup power improvements. Right now you have a emergency generator at the site and basically operates, or it powers up the entire facility if there's a power outage. With all this additional equipment, electric equipment, and so forth, looked at the need for additional backup power. So we have a price included as for another smaller generator. It wouldn't need to be as big as the current one, basically to supplement existing. We keep the existing one there. This would supplement. We would just operate different circuitry.
Would it be prudent to put a bigger generator in so it's redundant?
Guess we can look at that. I'm not sure if it.
I-
that would be necessary.
I think everything's so much.
Not necessarily
efficient.
spend more money, but I think having a redundant system is probably prudent in the long run.
I think everything's gonna be more efficient than the old system, the old stuff is, I would think, and gonna use less power.
It would be less or more.
Yeah.
Might want to take a look at that.
We're actually gonna be putting in new blowers with the biological treatment site.
Right.
Replace the existing ones. Those are old and outdated. And the new ones will be a lot more efficient.
Yeah. I'm assuming the pumps will be the same way, right? More efficient. Yeah.
Yeah, you actually have to be right now. For outside, it's the end. Our plans call for adding one more.
Has pump building get expanded at all, or is it
No,
existing footprints big enough?
My thing is probably peanuts in the whole scope of things financially, but you looked into the existing utilities, obviously around there. the vertical expansion on the tanks to the south end, water main that runs through there.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we accommodate all existing utilities and all that. We actually have an enforce main that's gonna be going in with this, the headworks improvements that we're almost done designing right now. A new little pump station for camping, and then a new force main that brings that around to the south end of the plant. And that'll be big enough for the future expansion as well.
Is there a reason why that third clarifier is so small?
You don't need it at this point in time, we don't think. You're just barely undersized with clarification, so what you need there is just a small little baby unit basically to meet requirements, and we're not even actually proposing to install a clarifier at this point in time.
Okay.
We feel that the DNR will give us some relief because the city is working on reducing their infiltration inflow with their mining program.
So that clarifier is not part of this 15 million?
It just shows where it would be if we did.
That's good.
Can you just touch on, why the biosolids dewatering improvements, went up by 2.8 million? I mean, I can do it in layman's terms, but I probably would get it wrong, so.
And that's mainly because of the additional relief that Daisy provided to us right at the time we got done with our draft report. It was either the day of or the day after we got this new information from Daisy saying, well, whoops, we need to give you some more information. So we got that, and that's what added the additional solids loading plant, the biosolids. So everything downstream from there had to be increased, including the tank, the digester tank had to be upsized. Then utilize. And now they told us though this week or maybe last week that their numbers may be high because they had some issues with the sampling at one of their existing plants. Basically what they're doing is they're giving us information from their newest plant discharge from that, because this one's going to be just like that one. And according to what we just heard from them is that it's likely that the phosphorus loading won't be as much as what they told us at the draft.
So,
Or a week. Cause the total project went up about 4 million from your draft.
They did offer up, I'm sure until they reached out and said that they sent in some additional sampling. I told them when they reached out, I said, make sure just to provide that to Perry, because they said they were gonna sound like they were gonna be more additional sampling.
so this is where, you guys changed from, a screw press to a fan press. Was
That's
that some of the cost increase?
You want to?
Yeah, it was like, so for instance, I was looking at the numbers. I believe that the phosphorus loading increased by 500 pounds a day, which is quite a significant amount. So we also dug more into the screw press and kind of honed in on the chemical numbers that would be used for that and got some more accurate quotes. And so we basically needed new quotes based on new loadings. And so they turned out to be what we have in the final report. So the fan press over the 20 years turns out to be less expensive than the screw presses.
So does all of this have to be done before Daisy goes into production? Is that what, I mean, is this is not something we have to have this for Daisy? All of this, the 15 million? Okay.
But that still gives us, that future proofs us for more housing and more people here, not just Daisy.
Increase the population, as well as a little bit in there for additional industry.
And this is some updates that we need to do regardless, I believe, as well. I don't think it's just because Daisy, we need a new lift station. You know, I think that one is outdated and we need a new one there as well, wouldn't you say?
Some of the stuff that's being replaced is linked towards its design life.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying half of this project was probably something we had to do anyway.
Yeah, so according to my notes, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, the blower building, the generator, the vertical expansions were all things that we were gonna need to do anyhow.
Yeah, they were part of your CIP, your long-term. CIP.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good point, Kyle. Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
I just don't want people to think we're doing this just because of Daisy, and we're not. We're doing this for the better of the whole community, not just for Daisy.
Well, this is looking to the future here too. This is beyond Daisy.
Yeah. Do we have estimates on what their rates, their sewer
Yeah, I
rates?
was gonna mention. that
Yeah.
For the meeting today, and I've done this before. I don't have anything to hand out, I can provide it actually, you know, but I took a look at what the revenue is gonna be from Daisy only. And then what it would cost to finance this project, on an annual basis. So initially, with the initial build out, in 2028, once they first come online with their lower loadings, their annual sewer billing is gonna be about $1.4 million, a little more than that. When they're at full build out, which will be 2032 and beyond, we estimate, based on current rates, and those rates go up too, we're gonna be at almost $3.6 million in revenue, is what Daisy is gonna be paying the city just for sewer rates. The water rates are about $2.5 million. So combined, it's about $6 million that Daisy will be paying for sewer and water every year.
How much water? 2.5?
2.5.
And can you, and maybe you don't have this, can you explain, the cost of operations and the increase that's
Yeah,
gonna,
there are gonna be some operational costs because of additional chemicals like alum and things like that, more electricity. We have that in the report. I'd have to pay for it, but that's all built into our cost-effective analysis. I was gonna mention those, so. I can provide this later. So if the city were to take out a 20-year loan at 4% interest, which is actually a little bit higher than the SRF is right now, the payment would be about $1.8 million per year. If that would be based on a $15 million, little over $15 million loan for the wastewater side. The initial revenue, so that's let's just say $1.2 million. Initially, the city will be receiving about $1.4 million of revenue just from Daisy. When they're at full built out, it's about $3.6 million. So once they're full build out, it'll easily pay for the financing.
Projected full build out is until 32, right?
Mm-hmm.
32,
So
right?
4 years after. So there'll be 4 years of revenue.
Would you say our payment was
So $200,000.
minus the operational costs? So,
Yeah, so the operational cost will be on top of that.
so it's about a break even. It's probably about a break even
Yeah, break even.
on the initial, right?
And we'll have a couple million dollars additional revenue. That we're on the reserves or whatever.
well, and so with SRS, remember, you have to have a 110 requirement. And on the sanitary sewer side, we don't have a 110 requirement currently. So we need to have Daisy's revenue be 10% higher than our expenditures.
That's with the RS or SRF.
SRF, yep.
Mhm.
And revenues can be 20%.
That's only for SRF loan, right?
Yeah, but if you do a revenue bond, they can require 20%, not 10.
Okay.
So
You have to have that revenue for that.
we need the revenue.
We need the revenue to have that. So in the beginning, it's gonna be tough.
And then also remember, SRF cannot be used for expansion. So anything that's replacing something, we can use SRF for. But if it is specifically for expansion for the Daisy project or residential growth, SRF cannot be used.
So the only thing we could use SRF for the RAS pumps and the sludge press, right?
That's something that Perry and I and
We'd have to work with the
I think, yeah, can use it for the tank also.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the,
Pump and all that, place the lift pump, but can we expand the lift pump or, you know? Kind of split.
I'm just looking at the 15 million is gonna be a hard pull.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'm thinking of, is whether or not the city even wants to use funding for this project, because then you have Davis-Bacon requirements, you also have American Iron and Steel requirements, you also have likely Buy America, Build America, or BABA, which when you're looking at equipment such as that would be going into this project, probably a majority of it is not built in the United States. No, I don't know that there's any single submersible pump that is built in the US right now. Maybe starting to build them now to catch up with the requirements. But if you are using federal funds, which SRF is a federal funded type program, you have to meet those requirements.
Don't they make, but typically in Buy American Act, they allow for you not being able to find it in the United States.
You have to work for it, right?
You have to prove a lot of them that you can't buy it in the US.
So what's the differential? We're talking about like an interest rate differential in SRF versus non-SRF?
About a 1.5%. The SRF is that we just got was 2.4%.
I don't know what you're.
We just did one, we just closed on the construction one and that was 2.4. So you're looking at probably a 4% for a revenue bond versus the SRF.
But you quoted.
The SRF is actually over 3.
No, I just did it for 2.4. We just signed the paperwork.
Is it, they have a,
It just renewed their company October 1st.
yeah, it's based on, what it is, but it's based on a certain Bloomberg rate or something like that right now. It's not a 2%. It's over, it's like 3.0.
Yeah, no, they just signed our contract or I just signed our on paper on October 7th.
Yeah, we got lucky.
So, yeah, and we actually held off to get the newest rate because we knew it was going down.
Their basis must have.
Yeah, so. Those are things that Maggie and I look at. She does a cost comparison with all the SRF and all those extra fees that we have to do. And believe me, there is a lot of extra fees. There's a lot of extra legwork, a lot of extra paperwork involved in those. It's not the way I would like to go. However, when you're talking at 1.5%, when you're talking this kind of project, that's huge.
I think you probably need to revisit it again by the time you're done.
Yeah.
Signing, it's gonna be at least a year from now, so things could change again.
Correct. So, and what we can do is we can do the planning and design, which is a 0% interest through SRF. And then when we get ready to do construction, we can analyze that and choose the revenue bond over the SRF for the construction.
That's really all I have on wastewater. Is there questions from?
There's one question, yes.
Daisy's putting in flow equalization.
Yeah.
Which is great. Are they having any pre-treatment out there?
They do have, they actually are pre-treating.
What percentage do you figure they're taking out before they send?
I actually don't know where to choose from. They haven't really developed that information. They actually have two separate forms of pre-treatment. One is a FBR system for their regular domestic type waste, and then they have a anaerobic digester type system which handles their high strength waste, which is what we're actually getting the effluent from that, which is still a high strength waste coming down to the plant, but it's not as high as it would have been if they didn't come in. And when we met with their engineers, originally they asked us, is there something you're looking at for levels of wastewater that you want us to maintain? And so we told them, yeah, that we definitely would encourage you to treat as much as you can up at your site, because our wastewater plant is for as much high strength waste that you were saying.
I do think it's important to the public to try to get that they're putting in the flowing legislation, so it doesn't wipe our plant out at one time. And they really need to know that Daisy is doing their part to reduce that waste as much as possible, before they dump it all on us.
We can try to get that word out. Thank you. Good point.
I just got one. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't ask our US water guy, the boots on the ground. Do you guys have any comments or concerns or anything about? I mean, as a boot on the ground guy myself, I have to ask that.
And we've worked with these guys through this process. provided some
Okay.
feedback. Won't take into consideration, I'm sure a lot of it.
Gotcha.
So the $4 million increase, just correct me if I'm wrong. The majority of that was that sludge press, right? Where that $4 million came from?
And the tank, additional tank size,
And you're talking about the
digester tank.
digester tank?
Yeah, it went from 365,000 to 400,000. So some extra steel sizing pricing on that. And then with that, you need blowers, so some additional blower sizing, some energy for that. Yeah, and then the bigger fan press associated with that. The SAF, they come in like certain sizes, so I don't think, can't remember if the SAF increased, but the polymer and the chemicals for that probably increased with the volume going through that unit, so that's my recollection.
I know it's that part of the problem is gonna have to be updated, the old tanks, like, very good, they put the staff, those were going to be removed. Due to be removed if they did fall in sooner than later anyways, but then, yeah, I mean, the new digester and produce the self press and that one. We're gonna have to do something for the future either way.
Tanks are 100 years old.
Right, yeah.
Is there any concern with using the steel tanks versus a concrete tank? In Iowa?
Longevity.
Communities that have these,
Longevity though, right? Longevity.
Yeah, they'll last, there'll be glass line tanks. I mean,
like a harvester tank, so they don't
corrode.
corrosion, basically.
I mean, you don't, if someone shoots at the tank, that will damage a whole panel and that's hard to replace. So vandalism is always just to make sure that doesn't happen. Other than that, the longevity is the same. It's just a lower price. Concrete is expensive and has rebar in it, and it takes a lot of labor to install that. So
Can I ask once again, you were saying a portion of this was going to be necessary in a certain amount of years. Can you review that? Was that about half of this cost of the 15 million? I mean, and what was the timeline on that?
They probably don't know that, Linda. Some of these projects were based on our long-term CIP plan.
But we know at least a pretty good portion we were going to need to be doing.
Yeah, yes.
Just without the Daisy project even.
Right.
Coming
For
first.
instance, your adult filter press is
Right.
having a lot of issues right now.
And I think that's an important message to get out.
It's about 50% of this was probably due.
Right, and I think that's important to share that there was, a large chunk that we needed to be moving ahead as a city anyway.
So on our fiscal year 2025 budget, we have $3.976 million in sewer revenue. That sound right? I mean, that's.
You're looking at it.
Yeah, right. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything. And so Perry's saying that the revenue just from Daisy, when they final build out, is $3.6 million.
Right.
It will be,
Double what will make.
yes,
It's gonna future-proof us.
And rates will be going up, so there you go.
yeah. So
That number is probably not
So
accurate.
one of the concerns initially is, like we discussed, needing that 110 or that 120 requirement and being able to make these bond payments.
Yep.
And the fact that we need this money now and not in 4 years or 5 years, to do these
the
projects.
gap.
Yes.
Mhm.
So what our next step will be is, I don't know if you guys seen it, but I do like an Excel spreadsheet and I kind of put in the projects and what year those expenditures are. And then I get that with Maggie and we figure out what increase we're gonna need. Obviously, we've already got that taken care of in our ordinances, but we need to determine if that's gonna be enough to make those bond payments. If it is not, then what we're proposing at this time is doing a capital improvement fee. That it would be a temporary fee that we would then be able to remove once Daisy's up and running and that revenue's coming in to pay those bonds. I actually spoke with Maggie last night. And we also talked about ways that maybe we can fluctuate those payments so that maybe they're less upfront and more in the back half when we know it's at full build or almost at full build. So I'm hoping to be able to bring those to you guys by the November 1st meeting, once I have the go ahead on these. I had her looking at the $12 million mark. Now we're at 15 million. And I told her last night, I'm not gonna make you do a 15 until I know that we're more comfortable with that one, that's where we're gonna go. But that would be our next step. And then we'll take in consideration with what Daisy's money is gonna, look like, some projection of what their increases are gonna be per year. And then we'll take into the consideration the expenditures that are in these also, so that we can figure all that in to determine what that capital fee will be.
Those fees will probably fluctuate. Even though they're full build that was at 32, it will probably come online with other things as they get ready.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we want to fluctuate those or just set it. And
Probably best.
No, I'm just saying that revenue should be there. I'm not saying that we should
Yeah.
build that into this equation, but
And what Maggie was suggesting last night too is let's get that capital fee started now, so that when we get those bond payments come and due, we have that revenue to go and take, and we're not using our cash reserves to cover them.
because we've already built in a 2% per year inflationary rate.
Well, that was to cover the $5 million or the 2.5 in the sanitary sewer and the 2.5 in the water that we did this year.
But that's built in.
Yes, so,
longer now.
yep, so we did 3%, 3%, 3%, and then 2% thereafter.
For sure, we know it's 2% per year.
Yeah.
Rate increase.
So Maggie knows that. We've already calculated that into that $12 million number that we had initially. But now we need to go back to that drawing board and put some more numbers in there, and I'm hoping to get those back to you guys.
Harry, what's your design fee rate on this?
We have 18% built in right now.
Why did it go from 15 to 18?
The initial said 50
The initial was 15.
Initial was 15.
and the water is 50.
Oh. I didn't realize that, I was mistaken. Yeah, we'll drop down to 15. That's what it was.
Good negotiator.
Mhm.
That might have been behind the back.
Mhm.
That discussion probably isn't over yet, so
Is,
just so you know.
Yeah, I know.
for the upfront, so for this gap period, is there any consideration of utilizing any reserve funds as a portion of that payment?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
So for like the gap years before the revenue starts to come in, is it a consideration or a possibility to use reserve funds temporarily to spread out the increase?
So under
repair?
wastewater, you still have to equal that 110 or 120, depending on what our funding source is. And using cash does not account for that. Same with using TIF. I actually learned that recently, is that we have some bonds where I TIF to help repay that, and that actually did not help my calculation.
It has to be revenue.
It has to be revenue.
Just making sure I'm clear. Okay. Have anything on the wastewater side?
Well, the next step for us on the wastewater is to submit it to the DNR, their review approval. We'll also be submitting what's called anti-degradation report, required anytime you increase your flow of loadings. that has to go out for public notice for 30 days before they can approve the facility. Our hope is that we'll get on this right away. We've already been told. State of Iowa knows about this and they're waiting.
Yeah.
To get it, so.
What would be our next step with that then, since it's not an action item on here? So will that be
Do we need to?
him some guidance?
Submit the plan to the DR, is that?
I don't think we
need to
can,
do now?
Can't do it.
I don't think we can do it tonight because it's not an action item.
This is.
Just a work session.
So does it,
I don't know, I'm asking.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're looking
Since
to-
it's an action item, but I don't know if we can give him direction to prepare it for that for the.
Oh, we're in an open meeting.
I don't know if we
Yeah.
can put it on to the 21st meeting to make an actual,
My opinion is that if it's on the agenda, you can act on it. So the fact that you've listed it there gives the public notice that it's going to be discussed and you folks can proceed if you want.
no.
Oh.
I don't think that we need to hold this up by any means. I think the sooner we can get this going, the better, but my opinion.
Yeah, we don't have that much time.
Yeah.
You want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to prepare and submit this to the DNR.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Koho Kelly. Yes. Mormon.
Yes.
Yes.
Williamson.
Yes.
Yes,
Bird.
Yes.
Henson.
Yes.
thank you.
Great, so move on to item number 4, review and discuss water system capacity evaluation report.
So that's similar to the water facility. We looked at the entire water system. As it is affected as that includes the drinks and project. And so taking into consideration the phasing approach that Daisy Brands is going to be using and the project affirmative and their demands coming in 2030. We looked at the water system in install. And so we first look at the wells because we always start at the beginning and we move towards your water distribution. So we first look at the wells and looking at your wells, you have 14 aquifer wells. Right now, you are only using half of those wells, and that is mainly because the treatment has seen higher nitrates readings coming from some of those wells. And so the operators have tried to use a portion of those wells to not exceed the MCL limit that sets the EPA for nitrates, which is at 10 milligrams per liter. And so looking at that, your wells that you currently use will only get you. And so at 2028, with the additional demand of Daisy at that time, you're going to need more wells in your system that are not high nitrate. So we have proposed to put in 2 Jordan aquifer wells. It's a different water source. It has different water chemistry. And because of that, we are recommending that we do a 2-week pilot study with Grimes. Grimes has Jordan aquifer wells also. We are assuming that their Jordan aquifer wells would be similar water quality to what you guys would experience up here in Bowie. We are recommending doing a pilot study with Grimes, and so we would use the Jordan aquifer wells and Grimes, or Boone alluvial aquifer well, and do a 2-week pilot study just to see what does that water chemistry look like. Can we even treat the water using your current system? Your water treatment plant is in beautiful condition. There is not really any issues going on with your water treatment plant. So if we can utilize what you have already existing, that's what we want to do. So that is why there's a 2-week pilot study to look at your wells along with the Grimes. Hopefully they'll say yes. And just to look at what that water quality is. If water quality is good, and it shows that we can utilize the lime softening system that you have in your water treatment plant to treat that water, then we will propose to drill a test well on your property for your ground first wells and do a true 6-month pilot study. And that will help us identify the ratio, the blending and how to treat it and what chemicals and stuff like that. So that is the Jordan Aquifer wells, and we're recommending to about was 2 different pilot studies for help. And that kind of goes into what you need to do as a water treatment plant for those modifications. We are recommending that the Jordan Aquifer well mixing with the alluvial aquifer wells before the aerator. So before it even comes into your treatment plant, give time for the water to mix, the temperatures kind of balance out with each other, and before it even gets to your aerator and starts in the water treatment plant process. So that is improvement number 1. Improvement number 2 is a clear well modification. I will get back to that, but I want to get number 3 first. So you have a ground storage reservoir rehabilitation for number 3. That is something that is currently under CIP. You have a 2 million gallon ground storage reservoir that is over by your high service pumps. And it is in need of some rehabilitation, some repair. Talking to the operators, they would like to potentially put a dividing wall inside that ground storage reservoir. So in the future, we could take one side down, do maintenance and whatever we need to do, and still keep the other side in service. And then vice versa, then we could put that other side back into service and take the other side down and do whatever we need to do. But there's some rehabilitation repairs that need to be done to that ground storage reservoir that is currently in your CIP.
That dividing wall is not in this.
It is.
It is?
Well, yeah, it's written in there that that's it.
So one note on that is because it is in our CIP and we actually had, and as part of the $2.5 million that we were going to do this year, that those funds have been accommodated in our revenue expense analysis.
So that number could come out of that.
Out of the new, and water is actually not an issue. We have very, very little debt in water. So we should not need to do any sort of capital fee on the water side.
That's good news.
Good.
So talking with operators again, they were concerned about taking down the ground storage reservoir and making sure we have enough CT time, chlorine contact time, to make sure you have enough chlorine that DNR requires before you can go out to the system. So your clear well and that pipe that goes from the clear well to your high service pumps provides enough CT time that your ground storage reservoir is not necessarily needed. And so you can take that out of service without affecting your CT time. However, also talking to the operators, they're concerned that if we take that out, then the high service pumps might overflow because of how it's all piped into it. So we are recommending that here becomes improvement number 2. There are some modifications done to it, the clear well. The clear well, the inlet, or I should say the inlet of the clear well is high in your tank. And so we're recommending to lower that down below your floor elevation of your high service pump room. So your high service pump room cannot flood. We're also recommending to install a level monitoring system to make sure that the operators know what is the level of the clear well at all times. Currently, you do not have one of those in your clear well. So putting those 2 modifications into your clear well will help with the operators to run the high service pumps and know what is going on inside the clear well. So while the ground storage reservoir is down, we're going to need to lower the level of the clear well in order to make sure that doesn't overflow, or that the high service pump room doesn't flood. And so because that's going to be lower, again, we checked your CT time and you do still have enough chlorine contact time required by DNR with that lower level during the time frame that the ground storage reservoir will be rehabilitated. Once the ground storage reservoir is back in service, we can raise the level of your clear well again and just operate like we're doing today.
So with the addition of these two wells, we have enough to accommodate Daisy and beyond?
That is correct. So by 2028, you need to have additional raw water capacity
Right.
To supply future growth, to supply Daisy, to supply.
And that covers this. Okay.
And more. Jordan Aquifer wells are very, so to speak, lucrative. There's a lot of water in there. So you don't need very many to get a large volume. And the only reason you need two is because you have to have redundancy. DNR requires firm capacity, which means what is your well capacity with your large wells? So when you put one Jordan Aquifer well in there, you don't meet your firm capacity for 2028. So that is why the recommendation is two.
And Audrey, you said number 3 was part of the CIP.
So yeah, number 3 was part of the $2.5 million that we were initially gonna budget for or bond for. Right now, actually, we're going out for the construction of those bonds. We just finished those up. That was initially part of those projects. So that has already been calculated in.
And the additional of that 2.5 was all the roofing projects and stuff.
Correct, yes.
Yep.
And a correction there, the 18% on the engineering was on the water budget, not the wastewater. And then also,
Do that too, Penny.
yeah, and then also, the total,
Okay.
that total's not correct, Katie.
Correct.
Phase one.
I'm aware after we negotiated here.
Oh, okay.
Rather have your number, but
To go into the Jordan Aquifer, we originally talked about having to put an RO system in. You're not thinking you're gonna have to put an RO system in?
The options was to put in an RO system. Once we figured out everything that needed to be added to your treatment plant because of the RO system, Perry was very much not happy with the price of that.
Okay.
And told us we had to go back and look at what we can do to lower the price of project 1.
Improvement 1.
And so we came back with a bunch of existing treatment system. If we can, I don't know that we can, but we're assuming we can.
Okay.
And not go with the RO system.
Okay, and then instead we would have to go to like another more shallow wells then? Would that be an option or not?
Well, if you go with a shallower well, you don't know if you're gonna have high nitrates or not when you find them.
Okay.
You could, right now, your shallow wells are broken up into land wells and island wells. Your land wells appear to have lower nitrates. There is a table in your report that Mackenzie put together that identifies different options. Like if you drill this many wells in the land and you use this stuff, what is the average nitrate that you're gonna see at the treatment plant? And by 2044, you will not have low enough nitrate levels even if you went with land wells.
Okay, and then the other thing that I had was long-term with the aquifer wells. When we have to re-sleeve these, what is the cost gonna be compared to the shallow wells?
Were you first saying about the Jordan wells?
So with the Jordan wells being so much deeper, our shallow wells are what, 75 feet, 60 feet deep, and now we're going
half mile.
600, we're going half mile deep. So we're talking, it's 20,000 to replace or the sleeves in the shallow wells, and now it's gonna be 200,000?
I don't know that answer. I can get that to you.
Okay.
But I don't know that answer. Mackenzie, do you?
Chime in. When you say sleeves, are you talking about the casing for the wells?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
So for a Jordan well, we wouldn't recommend re-sleeving. You would actually be more on a schedule for maintenance. So you would pull the well pump and brush the casing and any chemical cleaning that might be necessary to maintain the lifetime of that well casing. So it's not a re-sleeving portion. It's a maintenance program that cities typically take on.
Okay.
So it's every 10 to 15 years you would pull the pump and clean the well casing. It also gives you the opportunity to check your pump components and make sure everything's in good working condition.
And then with the Jordan Aquifer, we're talking a totally different water. Do we have to test for anything different like arsenic and all these other things that come from the Jordan Aquifer?
Radiation.
Radiation, you know.
Yeah, so we have a 6-month pilot study after a test well is drilled for the Jordan Aquifer. At that point in time, you would be able to test the water quality that you have. It would confirm if it is similar to Grimes water or if there's a concern with sulfates or arsenic or something, a different contaminant that isn't present in Grimes. And then we can address that through some water chemistry, chemical additions, and move forward from there. Is that your question?
We're talking about a lot about pilot programs. Is that cost included in this, or is this additional cost? The costs are included?
Yes.
Okay.
They are.
Any other surprises, Barry? The cost we don't have in this that we might incur? And your water design rate's down to 15% too, right? Till Bill talks to you? Okay.
I was just gonna add, and maybe I'm off base here, but so you have nitrate wells basically right now, and I thought I heard from somebody that EPA is looking at lowering the nitrate level in the future. So it could come to the point where none of your alluvial wells will meet the new nitrate requirements. So going to a Jordan well system will basically alleviate that.
Is the DNR no fits from them to do a Jordan well
You don't.
for this project? Because I bid a Jordan well for irrigation water 2 years ago, and I don't know if they do permitting for that anymore. For that, I'm sure they would.
Outside of their area. Maybe the better.
There's an area over by Fort Dodge that they don't allow any more drilling of the Jordan Well Aquifer. And also, the Dwayne Metro. There's an area there that they don't allow drilling for the Jordan Aquifer.
Might be a different.
But you guys are
Drinking
right.
water and gone.
Yeah, that map that they said the last one.
Maybe when the driller's in town, I can
Yeah.
get one put in for me too.
Terry, the only surprise that you would have is they have to go to the option that Perry didn't like and you have to go back to the infiltration or.
Yeah, I know.
That's-
RO systems are expensive. I get it.
And the problem with an RO system is all of the waste generated from the RO system would go to your wastewater treatment plant that we just got done discussing. Which is
Yeah, and
another reason
that's nasty waste too. Yeah, I get it.
There's no way to get it there.
What do we foresee? And obviously, you've got pilot studies and everything, but we just went through the TTHMs and stuff like that. With Jordan Aquifer and the potential where we were gonna have to go to a chlorine versus chlorine. And this question is going to be probably more than you guys. Perspective, what are you thinking about that? Just doing the Jordan well versus the alluvials we got, and nitrates and TTHMs and all that stuff.
Well, the water quality is definitely different, right? So, with the deep well, you've got low nitrates, but you've got very high sulfate. You've also got naturally occurring ammonia. That's gonna be an issue you're gonna have to deal with. That's gonna require, it's gonna affect your aeration up front of the process. It's gonna affect your CT time. It's gonna affect your disinfection process. You decide that you want to stay with free chlorine, it's about a 10-to-1 ratio, so your chlorine demand is going to increase by probably a 10-to-1 factor. So your disinfection system would have to be completely modified. Your aeration system might have to be completely modified. And then water chemistry works. All that mixing ahead of it. Something that has to be looked at. Hardness is going to change. There's some talk about different treatment chemicals that could be used to remove what they call permanent hardness. Hardness in the Jordan Aquifer. it's different. Some shallow alluvial wells. Nitrate is definitely considered radionuclides, are an issue in your Jordan well, so just trying to get that removal through lime softening. Potentially an issue as well. The tier 2 issues that I'm looking at long term, maybe an issue. We see the maps, that's something that she said, obviously, is just something that they're looking at right now. But the water chemistry is really your big issue that you're gonna have.
So fast forward to 2028. If Daisy was in their initial build out and in production, currently, would we have enough water to supply them?
What's your question again?
If this was 2028 and they have their initial build out, would we have enough water capacity right now to accommodate them? Or would we be bored of them?
Yes, but you would be way over your nitrate levels.
The nitrate.
Your nitrate levels is your issue with the wells that you currently have.
Okay.
They have that in that table.
So we need to address that first and foremost, right? The nitrate thing.
We need to figure out if our blending of them will work through our lime scale situation is the big thing. Because if not, we're gonna have to do, we're gonna have to go to an RO system and then we're in a whole nother mess to get into. Because we'd have to figure out a way to get rid of that water, that discharge water. Because they won't let us, they won't let us put it back in the river, so.
Well, there's a possibility.
We can actually submit a wastewater allocation to see if it go.
Yes.
Which would be
There is a possibility. They
ideal.
just haven't responded to us yet.
Maybe.
So. Okay.
Okay, one of the last questions I have is, why did the water tower double?
Well, I'll get to those.
She hasn't got that far yet. Settle down.
So phase 1.
Phase 1.
Trying to move things along.
So
Somewhere to be.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
the first 4 improvements need to be done by 2028. So the last improvement that needs to be done by 2028 is the high service pump replacement. Currently your high service pumps are not going to be large enough to meet the max day demand in 2028. So we're proposing to replace your high service pumps accordingly to meet the demands of 2028. This cost does not include any electrical changes or your generator down there. It doesn't include any of those. This is just to replace the pumps. We just didn't, that's part of the design of just seeing if the electrical is adequate enough then. So this cost does not include that.
So there could be additional cost to that. Do those pumps have VFDs on them?
One does. But they will have VFDs on them.
After
All
you
of them
replace them?
have VFDs,
Is that 3 pumps?
yes.
Which would be nice, just to regulate pressure.
Yes.
They have in mind for.
Yeah. We'll take care of you, Waylon. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So to proceed to our second phase of improvements for the water system, is to build a water tower near the Daisy site. As you've clearly mentioned, the cost doubled. I'm not gonna lie to you. That was because when I went to request the cost of other size of towers for another tower in your report, I noticed that those numbers that Kristen gave me did not jive with the previous number that I got for the Daisy Tower. I call improvement 5 the Daisy Tower, just so you're aware. And so I re-requested for a cost for that also. And the number I originally got was incorrect. So this is the correct number that I received from the tank manufacturer.
Does this number include hooking it up to our mains?
Correct.
Okay, because I think the last one didn't, I believe. Yes. Okay.
So look at where we looking at.
That will be decided during design of the tower. Whatever is the cheapest at the time, it'll be a hydrocolor or a spheroid or a composite, or we'll determine that at the time.
It'll look like a sour cream container.
It's like that, they could pay for probably more money.
Okay. Just kidding. Terry likes that idea.
Yeah. Yeah, let's add another $1 million.
So that is why that cost doubled, just so you are aware. But this water tower does include a mixer in the tower. It does include the water main to that tower, to the distribution system. It does include a whole bunch of site work that needs to be done. The last improvement that I have for 2044, and I only have it under 2044 because it really can be done whenever you want it to be done, or whenever the operators are tired of the Green Street Tower and the altitude valve not working. So your Green Street Tower is the only tower in your distribution system that does not float with the rest of your water towers, which means it is too low. So all of your water towers at the same elevation, or their high water level is at the same elevation. And the one at the Green Street Tower is much lower. And so if we did not have an altitude valve on that tower at Green Street would overflow daily, all the time. And that is just because it's just at a shorter elevation. So an altitude valve is currently there. And altitude valves have maintenance problems. I'm not gonna lie to you, they do. But they do work when they work. But they are maintenance problems. So my improvement is just to replace that altitude valve. The Green Street Tower is gorgeous. It looks like it's in great condition. Really what you just need to do is just take the legs and just raise it up but.
Well, that'd be a
that's
simple
harder
fix.
to do than is said. So the easiest solution is just to replace that altitude valve. The correct solution is to put in a new water tower, but that's just gonna cost too much money that it doesn't make sense.
We can look at that down the road.
Any concerns on the age of the altitude valve that's there?
Yeah. It's working fine now. We're able to keep it going until probably, but it's 30 years old now.
This is $75,000, a drop in the bucket
Well,
compared to the rest of this stuff. Easy.
ultimately.
Listen.
$75,000 drop in the bucket.
We're talking $20 million, $75,000.
I prefer to look at, I think that altitude valve has cost us some issues in the distribution system. When ice forms on the side of the tower and the tank, and the water rushes in there, it melts that ice drops, and that altitude valve is slammed shut multiple times. That slamming causes hammer in our system, and it has cost us some when we're talking these water flows that are gonna be coming by this area.
Can you put like an ice shield on it or something, or you put like an ice shield over it or something to?
Well, it's just the water in the tower.
Oh.
The water, the volume in the tower goes up so fast when the ice comes down.
Oh,
It's just like something hanging on the side of the tower drops in and the volume goes like that and the valve slams shut and here we go. So thoughts on that, as we're designing some of this stuff, obviously it's held back, but there's gonna be a lot more water moving by this area real soon, and shocks like that could cause.
We're short of a $6 million water tower. Waylon, what are you proposing here?
I'd say I like the 2044 design, because if we could come up with more money between now and then, we'd look at a water tower instead of altitude valve.
Or maybe the tank is just failing. Right now, it's not. It looks in
Yep.
good condition. I read the report, the water tower inspection reports. It is in great condition. I don't recommend at this time to replace it, but maybe something happens where ice is scraping the side of your tank and it blows out the side of your tank. Maybe that could happen any winter. And then maybe you don't do this altitude valve. Instead, you remove the altitude valve and you build a taller tank.
So I was kind of getting at, let's keep this in this 2044 project. As long as it's working, if we have to put it in because it fails, then we do.
Oh, gotcha.
But I don't.
We may need more intervention than is
Mhm.
expected at
Things go better for us in the revenue side of things. Forward with that 10 years.
Yeah.
It's kind of dumb. That is one of those.
Is that your,
Which is had.
is that your assessment? I mean, would you concur with that assessment? Anybody in that general area.
Yes. Yeah,
It's getting to the end of its life anyway,
well, it looks really nice.
Yeah. but we'll deal with that in 44.
Still gonna be here?
Less than 20 years.
5 more left.
Both be our problem.
Are you gonna be here?
18, it's right before the tower,
Last mayor.
so it splits off to
That is true.
4/8 and 10 and goes up to now.
It's 10 more like this.
And the only thing that we could encounter now, or a couple times talking to Dave when we've had some major hammer spikes and stuff, is just an increase in water temperature and a warm March day, and all of a sudden, bam, and he can see the trend in the tower, the water level just spiked. That's all we can.
Did that hammer ever blow out of me?
That's what I'm talking about. That's my concern.
Also, just for everyone here, you go scroll up just a little bit, for improvements 1 through 4, not the other direction. please.
Sorry.
Okay, that total project cost is incorrect. It is $6.3 million instead of $5.4 million, just so you're aware.
Mhm.
You already got that?
Apparently, I don't know that.
It's an Excel sheet, isn't it? It's a Word document?
Lucky the table's got
I'll
formatted.
do auto sum on. Yeah, that's right.
I think we're kind of in the same boat with this one. I think we don't want to hold anything up with the pilot studies that need to be done.
Yeah, I'm not anticipating any capital improvement be needed.
No, and I think that
Well,
either way, we need to, our nitrates are rising and regardless, we need to figure out a way to handle that.
other side, financially, we're in good shape, right?
Correct.
So, gonna have to submit this to the DNR for a pilot study.
Recommendation is to follow what the facility plan is doing and submit this report to DNR for the review. There is no other reports or forms I have to fill out, so. Happy, but, I just have to wait for their review, but I need you guys.
At this time, I think I'll make that motion to approve her submitting it to the DNR for.
Call the roll.
Mormon,
Yes.
Hilsaback,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Ingstrom,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Henson,
Yes.
Koho Kelly.
Yes.
Quick question, how long does that usually take for the review?
We've got the state on our side.
As long as they want.
We got the.
Just saying.
We've actually been told that because of the importance of the AG project in the state of Iowa, that the DNR is on notice that they have to
They'll move it along.
move it quickly.
Hope so. Nice.
Well, and
High profile DOTs is the same boat.
I do want to, circle back after we went through these reports and just reemphasize that these are just really mutually beneficial projects, investments in our infrastructure that everybody benefits. from.
Correct. And eventually we would have had to do it anyway.
Correct.
Let's just move this out of this, hope this.
These are all good projects.
Yep.
Okay,
Question back there.
So just to be clear, we're at 15%, right?
And we will change.
Both of you?
As long as that tells me to, but
We'll
yes.
change it.
Okay.
Change it to 10.
Bill will talk to you.
okay,
We,
hang on. Got the
we
point.
find not to use a 2 million gallon reservoir, go just off the Clearwater. Does that have any effect on our fire protection?
It should not. You're
You're losing, what, 1.5 million of reserve water?
during the repairs.
No, afterwards. If you abandon the 2 million,
Oh, we aren't abandoning it. We're gonna put it back in service.
okay, just redo it.
Yes.
We haven't, and split it.
And split it.
We're looking at that, yeah, if that's even possible.
All right, item 5, discuss utilizing a construction manager for water and wastewater projects.
I'll take that. So when we were in Sioux City for Iowa League of Cities, this was a hot topic. Several of the sessions I went to, and Bill and Terry, I believe, talked to people in regards to a construction manager at risk. And then we came back and we talked to, Mike from, Story Construction, and he was, gracious enough to allow, me to use his, presentation. I also have a copy, at each of your guys's, places, and there is extra copies up there. Just to give you guys a brief overview of what this is and then an alternative. The construction manager risk is something new here in the state of Iowa, beginning July 1 of 2022. What this does is allows the engineering firm to work with a construction manager to, at the beginning of the designing process, to kind of eliminate some of the what ifs, or to make sure that they're all on the same thought process of how that project's gonna go. There is some concerns with using a construction manager because there are some federal dollars that are saying that no, it does not qualify. FEMA is one of them. We aren't using FEMA, so that's not a big deal. CDBG is claiming that they don't have a process right now, but they are they're fairly sure they're going to cover it. I had several emails with SRF and some COGS and Simmering Corey. They all deal with a lot of grants, and SRF, Iowa Finance Authority, reassured me that they would cover a construction manager. There is just some hoops that we may need to follow. This is so new that there is not actually a out there that has used this in a water or sewer plant setting. So there is some concerns. The alternative to a construction manager is a project manager. And that basically is somebody that, and I'm going to use this as an example just because we're all familiar with the example. It would be similar to what we did with SEH on the UV project, where we had an engineering firm that was overseeing that project. We had a construction company doing the project, and we decided to contract with SEH to come in and kind of be the third person between the city, their engineer, and just be able to kind of oversee the whole project and give us some advice. From what I have gathered from.
Actually, Fox Strand, that was manager on Fox Strand, wasn't it?
Well,
They were the engineer.
they were the engineer.
But we hired them to construction manage that project.
Yeah, part of their scope of their was to oversee construction.
Right, but a project manager is a third party person that oversees the engineer and the construction. That is,
That terminology I'm familiar with, okay.
that's how SRF, Iowa Finance Authority, and then Simmering Cordy had explained it to me. So basically, what they're saying is if you have a good engineering firm, you don't need a project manager. But the construction manager at risk is something that maybe we want to look at. The only concern again is the funding sources that we're wanting to use. And then the additional hoops that we may have to go through to get them funded through those projects or through those funding sources. SRF, like I said, they have no problems. GEO would have no problems. A revenue bond would not have any problems. It would be those federal dollars if we were to get one on like the water well. Those grants would become not eligible for those dollars if we use.
I don't know if we want to be
manager.
a pilot for this program.
They do have other cities that have projects on the books to have this done. Just no project has been done.
What's the difference between a project manager and hiring a construction manager?
A construction manager at risk.
No.
Yeah.
So they're telling me there is no such thing as a construction manager. That's what I will find, because that was the terminology I used, and they were like, explain to me what a construction manager is.
I worked under construction.
Yeah,
I think that's what it is instead of I think,
Project.
I think they're the same
Project
thing.
manager.
Project manager, construction manager is kind of the same. It's the
Yeah,
same.
but she's saying is that SEH, if they design this project, that they would act as the project manager. Correct?
So a project manager does not have to go out for RFPs or RFQ. We do not have to do that for a project manager. They have nothing to do with the construction. They are basically the communication between the engineer and the city. A construction manager has to go out we have to go out for an RFP for, because they can actually talk to the contractors. They procure the equipment. And correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody, they procure the equipment, they go out and they gather subcontractors, and then they guarantee that price. So whatever the price they say that it's gonna be, they guarantee it. If it goes in over that, unless it was our request, they're gonna eat that fee. That's at the at-risk part, correct?
Yeah.
Supposedly, and it's called CMAR also, supposedly it also speeds up the projects.
That's because during the design phase of it. So they work with the design contractor or the design engineers.
Yeah.
When you determine that these are the brand of RAS pumps we're gonna buy, this is what we want to spec, right? They can go out and acquire those pumps right away and not wait until we let the contract.
They still have to,
This cuts down lead.
they
time.
still have a bidding process, basically.
Mhm.
You don't have to take a low bidding.
Mhm.
Right,
The only.
that's the only advantage to that.
They only show that it's the most beneficial to the project.
Yeah,
And they have not defined what that means yet.
So as opposed to just having a general contractor come in and bid that project, we don't worry about subcontractors. That's his deal, right?
Yeah, he's still like a general contractor.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you would work with the general contractor.
so yeah, a CMAR.
Simplest way to do it.
A CMAR would also be able to bid these projects. They just have to give notice. The other thing that, Iowa Finance Authority on the SRF side, kind of gave me a heads up on too is right now with SRF, we have to have a attorney review all of our bid letting. And they would determine, obviously they would do the bid letting, review for the CMAR and for, the general contractor. But depending on how they do the subcontractors, each one of those may also have to be reviewed before letting it. So that would be additional legal fees.
I just don't want to get into the same problem we had with our last project. I said anything that we can do to prevent that, I think is going to be beneficial.
Depends on your general contractor.
So what I kind of got from talking to these guys as well was what we run into is we want to try to use as many local guys as we can. And what they can do as a construction manager at risk, they can see this stuff coming down the pipeline and let these other companies know, hey, Boone's going to be having this going on. Kind of like the Daisy project right now, that everybody knows that Daisy's coming. They already have their books cleared so they can bid these jobs and know that it's coming down the pipeline. Instead, we're getting with wastewater treatment, there's not many of them in Iowa. We're getting them from other places. We'll make sure we're getting the right person, the best person to do the job, not just the one that doesn't have his books filled.
It adds another level of cost to the project.
And we've never really been told what the cost is gonna be by anybody. So I don't know if you guys have heard any numbers or percentages or, but we've never really told a cost on what that would be.
Well, I think it would be at least be beneficial to know that.
Yeah.
Before we went forward, but.
So SEH actually, is looking at this in a project in Minnesota right now, Big Lake, Minnesota. I don't know much about it. I've never dealt with this here in Iowa since it's so new, but I can find out from them.
Yeah.
What their thoughts are. We also have a separate subsidiary for design build, which also has dealt with CMAR type projects. I don't think in water wastewater, it might be other type of private stuff maybe. But I can find out from them a little bit more on how they feel about this process.
That'd be great.
This is what Susan just said this week.
It's good to know.
They did CMAR.
They are in negotiations right now.
It sounds like it would cut a lot of the more cumbersome aspects of the project.
Yeah, instead of getting,
It eliminates a lot of staff time.
Yeah.
you know, and nothing again, you know, I said, we got a lot of projects going on. We don't need Bill working on that every single day. We don't need Andrea working on it every single day. And we don't want to be having to pay another company to do it. Why not just pay one guy to do it?
Well, we need to find out costs first.
No, let the engineers be the engineers and let the builder be the builder.
So our negatives are potential costs and also, you know, maybe not being able to access some financing sources, which we really weren't counting on anyway. Or
And for those that like the water or the well, that there's potential federal dollars involved there. We just wouldn't use them
we
on
would just
that.
extricate that out.
Exactly. Yep.
Sure. It's definitely worth looking into.
And I think we need to look at this, you know, as one big project, not just, you know, wastewater and drinking water. It's one big project at a whole that we could have this person doing them at the same time.
Sure, we can
And
find some savings.
And when we talk about doing, you know, the $30,000 phase, whatever, we, you know, put it all into one. We're gonna have it all one big phase that can stretch out for, you know, 8 years or whatever it's gonna be, or 4 years. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying.
Well, my question is, it sounds like it's someone that kind of is going to oversee the whole project, and to me, that makes sense. These are big projects. And right,
Well, it'll
don't really have,
eliminate the problem we had with King at the project. That would be off the table.
I hope it's gonna take out a lot of those unforeseen change orders that, you know, that kill the local government. Because, you know, we budget for certain amounts and then we're getting hit with 20% change orders on some of these things. And yeah, we budget for maybe 10%, but when you get hit with that, that's a big number on a $30 million project.
yeah, they guarantee.
At risk, they would cover those change orders.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it makes me feel a little bit better knowing that you guys are seeing it now, but it's just still so new that we don't really know much about it.
Or the cost.
Take into consideration what he just said. They absorb those costs, so their fees are going to.
It's like an insurance.
Reflect that.
Yeah.
Might be pricey.
Yeah. I guess,
Or at least it's a set fee and it's not an open change order.
Right. But if their set fee is $2 million,
It could save us 6.
or it could cost us 1.
Yeah.
The insurance. Andrea had something to add.
so we don't need to make a decision right now. These guys come in at about 30 to 40% after the engineer starts their design project. So we do have some time to decide on this, and I can keep working with, I think her name was Amy at Iowa Finance Authority, and Justin at Cimarron Court. They're the ones that have really been helping me understand what the ins and outs of this is and how grants and things are
Maybe we could reach out to Mike and see what his estimated cost would be on $30 million.
These guys, if you guys are thinking about doing it up there. But I don't know if we can reach out to Sioux City or not, if, you know.
Well, Esposset would give us a pretty accurate.
And it's really important, just so you know, that the engineer's on board with using a CMAR.
Yeah.
Because there are some engineers out there that are completely against it. So
It
we,
doesn't really affect us, still signing the project.
Mhm.
It actually might be beneficial, to have a contractor side by
Yeah.
side with.
Yeah,
it,
right.
Because they have good ideas on what works. and what
This contract manager, for instance, for example, if it was Story Construction, they have a lot of expertise in this area. They've built a lot of wastewater and water treatment plants. They might be able to help during that design process and catch things that they've run into in the future and eliminate that, you know, going forward. So.
and just a reminder that the construction manager role does have to go through the RFP.
Well, I know what Esposset said when he made the proposal, that the cost savings counteracts what their fee is, but he's selling a project.
Exactly, yeah. But at least it has to go through the bid process and.
Yeah, I feel a lot more comfortable if this was more common than
Well,
prototype.
like we got at least maybe three that might be willing to, to put an offer in on that.
Yeah, I can reach out to Mike and find out what that cost would be.
So just kind of put that on your guys' radar, I
I'm
guess.
sure it's based on the total project cost.
Okay, so get more information on that. Another thing that's on your desk before you adjourn. Karen and I have been working together to plan a town hall meeting for informational purposes. To update folks on everything that's going on. Housing, infrastructure improvements, that's road improvements. We came up with Thursday, November 21st for that, at 7 PM. Please do come if you are available, as it'll be an open meeting. We'll be voting on anything at that time, but
It'll be nice to have council there, though.
try to answer as many questions we can about a lot of different housing projects people have had questions about. And the other thing too, I want to tie into this, I wanted to have the public input prior to our goal setting. So if folks have some ideas of things we should be aware of for the future, they can give us that information prior to our goal setting. December 2nd, is that when it is?
Yep.
So that'll be right before that.
And I'm working on it right now, and I will send it to you two to review for numbers and.
Terry will have a
accuracy and
PowerPoint prepared for disseminating information, demystifying stuff.
should be pretty comprehensive. I covered everything you sent me, so.
Anything else before we adjourn?
Is there any on the budget calendars that sent out?
Yes, you did. Yeah, for those of you that are new, I think both of you were here for the last budget session, so that's the same stuff. Lisa, we have a goal setting session the first Tuesday of December, I think it is. The second, and then.
Number third.
Third, okay. And then we'll have additional budget sessions in January that have on your calendar.
In December, isn't it?
Goal setting is
Goal
December.
setting's December,
Yeah.
and then
Budget
budget
sessions are
is, yeah, I think it's the second Tuesday is when we will have a budget work session. We'll do the same with the hotel motel like we did last year, where we just do it as part of the council agenda.
It's 14th.
January 14th, yeah.
January 14th is budgeting.
That first session. And then the next Tuesday is a tentative. So if we had issues and,
No consensus.
yeah, then we would meet again. If I needed to go back to the drawing board, or sorry, if Christina needed to go back to the drawing board, then she would have to represent, another budget for you. Same kind of process as last year on the budgeting. They did move up the deadline to get that tax levy information over to the county to March 5th instead of the 15th. But otherwise, I don't think there's so far, no major changes.
All right. Well, thank you all for all your work in these reports. Thank you for all for being here. It's adjourned.